Okay, let's dig into this. We've got some really interesting source material today, and it kind of poses a provocative question, doesn't it?
It really does.
If you're running a SaaS company and you're using Snowflake, are you, really using it, or is it just like expensive storage?
Yeah, that's the heart of it. It's a situation many SaaS companies find themselves in. They adopt Snowflake. It's powerful, great for handling tons of data, absolutely.
Right.
But as this material points out pretty clearly, many teams kind of stop there.
Hmm.
Basic warehousing, maybe some standard BI, they could be missing out on a lot.
Leaving potential untapped, basically. Innovation potential, even revenue potential.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, isn't it? This
Yeah.
idea from the source material that Snowflake isn't just a place to park your data.
They call it an innovation engine. I like that
Me
framing.
too. So our mission here is to unpack what the source says about these more advanced capabilities.
Hmm.
What are they, and maybe more importantly, why should you care if you're in the sauce world?
How can they actually help you build a better product, run a smarter business?
Precisely. So one of the big shifts highlighted is this concept of moving the compute to the data instead of pulling data out.
Okay.
And the prime example given is Snowpark. Now think of Snowpark as basically a way for your data scientists, your engineers, to use languages they already know and love, Python, Java, Scala,
The familiar tool set.
right, and use it inside Snowflake to build and deploy things like machine learning models directly where the data lives.
Okay, so walk me through why that's such a big deal. Instead of exporting, say, terabytes of user data to some separate ML platform.
You bring the code, the Python script, whatever it is, into Snowflake. The source makes a strong case that this leads to much faster iteration cycles for data science.
Because you're not waiting for data transfers.
Exactly. Less data movement, less hassle. And critically, much better data governance. The sensitive user data, for example, never actually leaves the secure, governed Snowflake environment.
That's huge from a compliance and security standpoint.
Absolutely. And think about the applications. The source mentions using this for something like proactive churn prediction, building that model right on top of your live customer data.
Instead of using stale data exported weeks ago, much more accurate, I'd imagine.
Way more accurate and potentially much faster to react.
Okay, Snowpark makes sense for the internal teams. What about building things on the data, maybe for customers or operations?
Great question. And that leads directly to the next point in the source, what they call data applications. This involves using tools like Streamlit, which is now part of Snowflake, or things called external functions.
Streamlit for building interactive apps, right?
Yeah, exactly. Easy dashboards, interactive tools. And external functions let Snowflake call out to other services, like maybe an alerting system or a custom API.
So how does this play out in SaaS?
Well, the source suggests this is where you can really innovate on user experience or internal visibility. Imagine your engineering team building a real-time dashboard for a specific enterprise client, showing that client their specific feature adoption metrics, or maybe system health, pulling data directly from Snowflake. Live data.
Without needing to build and maintain a whole separate application layer or complex data pipeline just for that one dashboard?
Precisely. You build it on Snowflake. The source calls this a potential game changer for delivering value, enhancing visibility for your customers, or even for your own support teams. Think anomaly detection flagging issues in real time, or even billing engines running directly on usage data.
That sounds significantly more efficient, building features right on the data platform itself.
It can be. Now, another area the material emphasizes is how Snowflake handles, let's say, messier data, data that doesn't fit neatly into rows and columns.
Ah, like JSON, event logs from a web application, maybe?
Exactly that. Product usage logs, API responses, sensor data often comes in as JSON or similar semi-structured formats. Snowflake, the source points out, is built to handle this natively. It mentions two key things, variant data types and the lateral flatten function.
Okay, let's break those down a bit. Variant. That means Snowflake can just ingest and store JSON without you needing to define every single field up front.
Correct. It's incredibly flexible. You can load complex, evolving JSON structures directly into a variant column. No rigid schema enforcement needed at ingest time.
And then lateral flatten. Sounds complicated.
It sounds more complicated than it is. It's basically a function you use in your SQL queries to easily pull out, or sort of unnest, specific pieces of information from inside the JSON stored in the variant column.
So even though the JSON is stored flexibly, you can still query it effectively using SQL.
Yes, precisely. For a data scientist or an analyst, this is huge. You can query those raw product event logs almost immediately after they land.
To do what, for instance?
Well, the source gives examples like analyzing user interface flows, where a user is clicking, where do they drop off, or maybe identifying common errors by querying patterns in log messages, or tracking adoption of a new feature by looking at specific event properties.
And you can do this without waiting for a complex, often brittle ETL process to transform that JSON into traditional tables first.
Exactly. It dramatically speeds up the time to insight from that kind of valuable semi-structured data. Data that in other systems might be really difficult or just too time-consuming to actually use effectively.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense for getting deeper product insights. What else did the source highlight?
The final major capability discussed is secure data sharing. This is a really powerful one, especially for SaaS companies interacting with customers or partners.
Secure data sharing sounds straightforward, but what's the key differentiator here?
The absolute key, and the source really stresses this, is that the data does not move. There's no copying, no FTPing, no emailing
Well,
files.
does that work then?
You, as a data owner, essentially grant secure access to a specific slice of your data, maybe a specific table or a filtered view directly to another Snowflake account, your customer's account, your partner's account.
So they query it within their Snowflake environment, but they're accessing my live data.
Exactly. It's a live pointer, essentially. You retain complete control. You can revoke access instantly. They always see the most up-to-date data because there's no copy, no sync lag.
I can see how that applies to client reporting. That often involves clunky data extracts or building custom APIs.
Right. Imagine your analytics team just needs to create a secure view of a client's usage data and share it directly to that client's Snowflake account. Boom. Done.
Zero data duplication, no sync errors. Just live, governed data access for the client.
Yep. Or think about sharing benchmark data with partners, or even monetizing certain aggregated data sets without ever losing control or physically sending the data anywhere.
That feels like a fundamentally different way to collaborate around data.
It really is. And the source material ties all these capabilities, Snowpark, data apps, semi-structured data handling, secure sharing together by saying these aren't just, theoretical features.
Right, they call them actual lovers.
Actual livers that SaaS companies are using now to deliver value faster, build smarter products, and operate more efficiently.
Yeah.
It's about moving beyond Snowflake as just a better database.
And leveraging it as that innovation engine we talked about at the start, using its unique capabilities to directly influence the product, the operations, the customer experience.
That's the core message.
So wrapping this up, the central theme from this source material is pretty clear. There's likely more potential in your Snowflake instance than just basic warehousing and BI.
Definitely. It really leaves you, the listener, with a challenging question to ponder, doesn't it? Pulled right from the source's call to action.
Yeah.
Is your SaaS team truly unlocking Snowflake's full potential? Are you building on it, using these advanced features, treating it like that innovation engine?
Or is it still primarily functioning as just another warehouse, a place to store data before you move it somewhere else to do the interesting work?
It's a question worth asking.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about whether you could be squeezing more value, building smarter features, maybe even improving your product strategy just by looking deeper into the tools you already have. This deep dive definitely shows there's a lot more under the hood.